said it'll do its best to work with communities on the subject of fracking and could even offer incentives like lower gas prices. The Business and Energy Minister, Lord Callanan, told Joe Anita it's about strengthening the UK's energy security.
The Prime Minister has said that if fracking can be done in a safe manner with the consent of local communities, then it makes sense to get our own homegrown energy resources rather than have to rely on gas being supplied from very unstable parts of the world. Obviously, we still supply 40% of our gas needs from the North Sea, but if there are identifiable reserves that we can use domestically, then we should take advantage of those.
So there's the view from a government minister. Well, Kevin Hollingerake's Thirsk and Malton constituency has some of the largest shale gas deposits in the country. He said he supports onshore gas exploration where it's safe and where there's community consent. A little earlier, I spoke to Frank Colenso, who lives in Hovingham. He's a member of the campaign group Frack Free Rydell and disagrees with the government's decision to lift the ban. He says it's a myth that fracking will reduce energy prices.
I mean, today we have a climate emergency, we have an energy crisis, and we have a cost of living crisis. And all three, climate, energy and cost of living, are being driven by the dependency on fossil fuels. We are where we are, but we cannot allow to let this, if you like, uninformed or misinformed leaders continue to make these mistakes, and our livelihoods and lives depend on it. So to answer your question, what will be the reaction of residents? I think the general public will vote with their feet and march on the barricades to the answer of to the lifting of this the ban on moratorium.
That's Frank Colenso from the campaign group Frack Free Rydell. And listening to that is Lorraine Allanson, who lives near Pickering. And Lorraine's in favour of fracking and has written a book about the row over fracking in Rydell. And boy, was it a row, Lorraine.
It absolutely was. We were invaded by a lot of protesters from outside the area. And some of the activities they did were very disgusting and dreadful for the locals. You know, not only did they lie down in the roads and lock on so people couldn't pass through the village, they actually did some terrible things. One of the worst things they did was break into the well site, climb the workover rig, and light a flare above a live gas well. That endangered the police, the workers, and the village. The company had to give them refreshments, blankets, and hire a very expensive specialist team to get them down from the rig.
Well, it did at the time, didn't it, Lorraine? It got very, very bitter, and it is still a little bit bitter in the area, isn't it? But I just want to get your reaction to the fact that the ban has been lifted. Is this good news for you?
It is absolutely good news because we rely on imports. We imported over 50% of our gas last year at a cost of £20 billion. And we're sat on a lot of gas here. There could be 50 years' worth of gas. And we are going to use gas for decades, contrary to what everybody says. And when they say, though, it'll only be sold on the global gas market, there isn't such a thing, actually. And the industry...
Well, there is, isn't there? There's like a regular gas price. It's all sold on the same market, isn't that's what the whole bother's about at the moment?
It doesn't have to be at all. It doesn't have to be at all. America doesn't. America's got gas 10 times cheaper than us because of fracking. And I heard a statistic yesterday that 15 million people in America live within 1 mile of a fracking well. So, and where's all the...
But they do have earthquakes as well, don't they, in America? They do have it. They do. Tremors, they have tremors, don't they?
Tremors. There's a difference between tremors and earthquakes. And the tremors, when you have tremors, they're very brief when it's to do with hydraulic fracturing, whereas a natural one can last longer. And if people really are concerned about earth tremors, why are they not down in Cornwall protesting against the geothermal well there? Because it's had endless of tremors because they fracture it and, hydraulically stimulate it in the same way as they do, shale gas wells.
No, well, let's
down there protesting.
Let's come back to everything that's happening in Rydell. The government has said it wants to work with communities, and as we've already mentioned, it did get really naughty, didn't it, and really fractious, I suppose we could call it. How realistic do you think it is that communities will go along with this and say, oh yeah, come here, you give us a 5% discount, that'd be fine? Do you think that's realistic?
I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be like a third-party source of information, a group of technical experts and scientists that come in and speak to the locals. And that you don't end up with... Can I just carry on with that, please? Because when there's public meetings, you get an influx of protesters from outside the area, and they just boo and heckle anybody that speaks. And what the locals need to do is to be able to speak to people who know and understand the process and can allay their fears. Because there's technical solutions to whatever their concerns may be, and they can be identified and implemented. But the locals, and some will be concerned, I understand that, they don't get a chance for a fair hearing.
The problem I've found when we've done discussions on fracking in the past, and because it is so controversial, so it really is a very divisive issue. When you get what and I'm going to use air quotes here, an expert, many of them have are not impartial. So many of them. So one scientific expert absolutely safe, and these are the advantages and these are the figures, and then you could get another very somebody who's very qualified as something else with hugely different figures and a hugely different viewpoint. So it's your experts that could equally be as divisive as people who just have a basic opinion about these things.
Well, I have to say it's very interesting that you say that, because the person who founded Frack Free United, which is the umbrella organisation for all the frack free groups in the country, actually, it turns out now he's the director of several renewable companies who are wanting to cover our area in solar panels. And one well site to produce the same, which is only like 2 hectares, to produce the same amount of energy, you would need 725 times that size for wind and 450 times that size for solar. And solar, you're covering the countryside with glass, plastic and metal imported from China, built by slave labour, minerals mined by child labour out in the Congo. So, it's people always say, no, it's clean and green. There's a very dirty secret to all those. And when people say that it's going to be 9 times cheaper, they're speculating on forward prices. And actually yesterday, gas was cheaper than some of the offshore wind farms were producing energy for. And they do never account for the backup system. It's like having a car that only works 3 days a week, and you need a car that will work 7 days a week to cover for the 3-day-a-week car, because you don't know when it's going to work with renewables.
Lorraine, thank you so much for coming on the programme. As you can tell, it is still very much a very emotive and a very divisive subject. Lorraine Allanson lives in Pickering, and Lorraine is in favour of fracking and has written a book about the row over fracking in Rydal. If you feel very strongly about fracking,